All right, hi, and thanks. I'm a bit nervous. Like everything seems to be working from tech side, but it's always this small moment when you don't know if everything works. So yeah, okay. Let's start with some questions here. Um, how many of you, like when you are developing user interfaces, how many of you consider accessibility in your development work? I'm really happy to see this many hands here. Then next question. If you test for accessibility, like any part of accessibility, how many of you do tests with actual like mobile devices, so not on like browser on computer, and in this case, emulators, simulators, those count as mobile devices as well. So how many of you do that? I'm really glad to see some hands, but it wasn't as many as like in the first question. But I think you should. And that's basically what I'm going to talk about today. Well, the differences between like differences in accessibility between like desktops and mobile. Like, and when I say mobile, I mean both like mobile web and native mobile. But we're gonna get to that in a bit. Now is the like really okay. Scary moment. If everything is working, yes, it's changing the slides. My clicker is working, I'm happy. So before we go into the actual like topic today or the things that I'm going to talk about, a couple of words about myself. So hi everyone, my name is Eeva-Jonna Panula or Eevis Panula. I recognize the name Eevis better, so that's why I'm Eevis everywhere. And I'm mobile accessibility developer. I think that's the word I'm using about myself right now. I'm still learning this new role, but basically what I do is that I help companies with mobile accessibility. So if you just realize that, oh no, our mobile app is not accessible, we have like no idea what we need to do before June 28th, let's talk after this talk. But yeah. The next thing I have here is that I'm Google developer expert for Android and Women Tech Makers ambassador. So the past years I've been working mostly with Android and accessibility. That's what I was supposed to say in the previous point as well. And I really love to share what I've learned. So I write a blog, I speak at different events, and there's going to be a link to my blog later in the talk if you're interested in like mobile accessibility themed writings. I'm also a disabled person myself, and that's one of the reasons why I am so passionate about accessibility. I'm just trying to make the web, the mobile world accessible for myself because I'm so freaking tired of being excluded sometimes. I could share you like one story from here because we actually have time for that. Like from this exclusion, if you have these huge parallax scrolling, if you have these huge elements that have parallax scrolling on your website, they are probably making me sick, like throw up kind of thing. And I'm speaking really literally here because I have a well, I get motion sickness from those kind of elements. And if they don't, like, if the website doesn't respect the reduced motion setting, then like I still see those animations and I might get really awful like symptoms from that. So like if you ever see those kind of, or if you need to develop those kinds of elements, think about me and then like insert into your favorite search engine this like what is reduced motion or remove animation setting and then how to comply with it. Then like I'm really happy. Like if you don't remember anything else from this talk, I'm really happy with that as well. But yeah, just getting back to my like who am I kind of thing. When I don't do something work related, I do sports, basically, or I knit. And my pronouns are she and they. But yeah, getting back to what we are actually talking about today, of course, I hope that you will remember something about the things that I'm going to talk about next, even if I said that I would be happy about you just remembering about the reduced motion stuff. That's actually, if I remember correctly, that's something that I spoke about when I was speaking in React Finland a couple of years ago. So like you can check a talk from there. But yeah, I think I'm just like rambling now, and I'm trying to get back to my topic here. So yeah, what are we talking about today? We're gonna first talk a bit about differences between desktop and mobile, like in general, not from accessibility point of view. I just want to remind us all of the differences that like these platforms have. And then we're going to spend the majority of the time with the actual accessibility differences and what to consider there. So yeah, I noticed that I'm a bit nervous, and I just need to kind of say it out loud so that I can live with it. Okay, yeah, I should not have said that, probably. All right, so now that my slides are there, so let's talk about the differences between like desktop and like mobile interfaces, or like, well, desktop and like the platforms, I could use the word here. And for some, the things that I'm going to say might feel really like, yeah, of course we know these, but at least for myself, these have been something that I've needed a reminder about when I was a web developer before switching to Android, actually. So like I needed this reminder sometimes, and so I think that it's useful to be reminded of these things once in a while. So what are some like differences between desktop and mobile interfaces or like platforms? First of all, the navigation is different. On desktop, average user is usually using a mouse for navigating like around the interface there. Then there are some who use a keyboard, but they are like more of a minority, like compared to the mouse users. But still, like I wanted to mention it here. But still, like if I had to pick one, it's the mouse. And then on mobile, it's touch, and these already bring some differences on like especially for the web when you are building the same interface that's used on both, like when somebody navigates to your website on computer and then on like mobile device. Then some other differences here. It's good to remember that on mobile, hover action is not available. And like this might be again something that, yeah, of course, but like if a website has some like functionality that's or information that's displayed only on hover, it's not available on mobile, like unless it's made available with something like clicking or something else. But like it's not automatically available there. So it's good to remember that hover is not available on mobile. And then another difference is that mobile interfaces actually have less space. And this usually leads to these, well, different kinds of design decisions. One of them that I hate a lot is the fact that usually, like if a desktop has buttons that have like icons, these icons usually have some sort of label there. So let's say there's a button that has some sort of like icon, and then it has a text edit there. I'm not even going to try to describe the icon there because there are so many different edit icons out there. But then, like when I open the same site on my mobile phone, then it just like label is gone and the icon is the only thing there. It's usually really hard to understand what I can do with that button. Even if I've been using the user interface for a longer time, I still have problems with remembering these kind of things. So I really don't like the way that sometimes user interfaces when they if it's first designed for desktop, then when it's the second design is for mobile, then there is just the one decision is that let's take some information away, for example. And that's hard for me personally, because I have issues with memory there. But yeah, that's still a difference there. So that there is less space, so we need to make, with less space, we need to still provide all the same information than what's available for desktop, for example. All right. Now we've been talking about general differences there, and I've been ranting a bit about my experiences. But now I want to move into the actual accessibility considerations related to most of these are related to mobile, or I'm looking at these from the mobile perspective, because usually from my experience, devs usually know more from the desktop perspective and how they use these things like assistive technologies. If they know, then they know it on computers. So I'm looking at this more from the mobile point of view, in a sense. All right. So the first thing I want to talk about is that screen reader navigation is different on mobile than on if you are doing something on your computer or testing it with your computer. And especially from the developer point of view, I have to admit that when I was a web developer, I was doing also some accessibility testing for the user interfaces that I was developing. And I have a Mac, had a Mac back then. I was using VoiceOver, which is Mac's screen reader. And I used to I tested the desktop websites. Yeah, no big deal. It's not actually recommended to use VoiceOver as the first screen reader testing, screen reader for testing, but I was still using it, and yeah, that's that there. But I was using it also for testing mobile websites. So I just had my browser open, I opened developer tools, I just checked the mobile layout there, and I did the testing with the same screen reader. And okay, I could find some issues there, and I could fix them, but I should have tested with actual phone and actual phone screen reader, because they work a bit differently under the hood than for example, the VoiceOver on my Mac. And for iPhones, the screen reader that it's mostly used is also called VoiceOver, but it still works a bit differently, because it's it's different operating system there. And for Android, the most used is called TalkBack, and that's also a built-in for most devices. But I should have used those instead of my Mac's VoiceOver. So it's good to remember, if you do screen reader testing, I'm not saying that everybody should do it, but if you do screen reader testing, remember to test with actual devices for mobile sites as well. And of course for mobile apps, but this is more of a reminder for websites. Yeah, all right. Then now that we have this slides again there, the next point is about alternative navigation and the differences on desktop and mobile. And when I talk about alternative navigation, I talk about different tools and assistive technologies such as, well, physical keyboard. Like if you are using a physical keyboard for navigating around, people do that with, even with mobile phones. Switch access, voice access, and other similar ways of navigating around the phone, for example, are like the ones that go under the alternative navigation here. And again, here, like, it's good to remember that these, like, on phones, on actual phones, they behave a bit differently technically. So if you do testing, remember to test with both, like, actual phone, or in some cases simulator, emulator, depending on the like operating or like a phone you're targeting or operating system you're targeting. So yeah, that was basically what I wanted to say about this one. Then we are going to talk about orientation and how locked orientation is a problem. And if you've been developing just for web, this might be something that you've never really thought about. And there's a reason for it, because usually this is not an issue for websites if they've been built in a responsive way. But then if you've been developing any like native apps, then you've probably run into this theme, and maybe also into, like, if you've ever thought about it or discussed about it, there are really like strong opinions around is it a problem if orientation is locked? And when I'm talking about locked orientation or orientation in general, I'm talking about like a phone, like it can have like two orientation. It can be in portrait mode or orientation, or like that's a vertical one. So the way that most of us use our phones, if it's just like not a flip phone or something like that. And then landscape orientation, horizontal mode. So if you flip the phone into a horizontal position, I should have a like phone here to display, but I have too many things on my hands. And I'm gonna have a like example in a coming slides about this. But like, okay, I've told you that this is a problem and that there are strong opinions, but why does this actually matter? Well, from accessibility point of view, imagine you're a person who uses, for example, a wheelchair, and your phone is mounted on a wheelchair, and it's in like one orientation or one position. You can't turn it to like from landscape to portrait or from portrait to landscape. It's always in one like orientation. And if the apps or websites don't work with both orientations, well, if you're unlucky and the orientation you've picked is not the one that most of the apps work with, so it's portrait, then, well, it might be really hard to use your phone, actually. And this is, like, as mentioned, on websites or mobile websites, this is not that much of a problem. There are some problems that I'm going to talk in a bit about a bit more. But especially with native mobile apps, I'm going to give you some numbers here. So this State of Mobile App Accessibility, a report about, well, mobile app accessibility was released, like the first one was released in April, I think. And it tested 50 like the most popular apps that they found from 5 different categories. And for each app, they had like, or each category, they had these like different user paths that they were testing. And from the views that they were testing, under 10% actually supported like both landscape and portrait orientation. Or in other words, over 90% of the views did not support like switching the orientation. So they were locked into one orientation there. And well, I told you about the like possible situation where like somebody would want to actually use the like their phone in, let's say, landscape orientation. Well, 90% of the apps, or over 90% of the apps, don't support that, and that's, well, it sucks to be in this world with the non-accessible apps. Actually, if you actually need the this like feature there. And I'm going to give you, now that the slides are up there again, I'm going to give you a couple of examples of the problems here. So let's first talk about the web. This is like, I was using my phone on landscape orientation. This is a screenshot from this Ilkka-Pohjalainen, which is a newspaper from Etelä-Pohjanmaa, Pohjanmaa area. So I'm originally from Seinäjoki. So like, I wanted to bring something from Seinäjoki here. And okay, like it's in horizontal mode there, and you could read things like if there wasn't a picture but some text, you could read it. But there's one thing. So there is a fixed top bar, which is always visible. And okay, in this case, it doesn't take that much of screen estate, but let's say if I had my like the font size as the largest, the like top bar could have scaled to be much like have more height or take more space there. Or if the website had fixed bottom bar as well, and then some chat button somewhere there, that already takes a lot of space. And for somebody using their phone in a like horizontal position or landscape mode, it doesn't leave that much space for the content there. So the one thing that's a problem for the mobile web is actually fixed elements. So if there's a fixed top bar, bottom bar, or something like that, they can create problems or even barriers for usage. Then for the mobile, like native mobile. So here is a screenshot from Polar's app, and I wanted to give or add a training target, I think. Yep. And I was using my phone in like horizontal mode here, but the orientation here is locked to portrait, which is really, really, really common for like apps, as mentioned before. And let's just say that if I was using my phone on landscape mode on regular basis, I probably wouldn't use this app. I would just switch to some other app that supported like portrait orientation. And like one more thing about orientation before we are moving on to the next topic is that, you know, Mariana was talking about the legal requirements, and I have like, if you are thinking that like supporting landscape orientation is something that you're not going to do, but you are actually like, you need to be compliant with the European Accessibility Act and everything that was discussed before, well, supporting like both orientations actually is part of web content accessibility guidelines. I don't remember the exact success criteria, but like apps need to actually support both orientations. And that's going to be like a surprise to many, like at some point, because as mentioned, there are strong opinions around this topic in the native app world, at least. All right, then I'm gonna talk a little bit about scaling font sizes or bigger font sizes or like dynamic size on, I think that was the name on iOS, but the situation when user changes the default font on their phone to be bigger than, well, the default one. And there are some statistics, for example, from app that, if I remember correctly, about 25% of users on both Android and iOS turn the font size bigger than the default one. So that's actually a like really big group of people. They don't all turn it to the biggest size, but still, like, I personally actually use my phone with a bigger font size, and I already see some problems on my, like, on the apps that I'm using. But it's just like 1 or 2 bigger than the default. But like for those who use it on the biggest, well, there are lots of problems. As you can see in a bit, I have a couple of examples there. But like on web, yeah, I have good news. These usually work well if like the website has been made in a responsive manner. So that's actually like a key to many things. But like, well, yeah, then usually like the elements on the page flow in a nice way and they don't overlap or anything. So like with font sizes, like there are kind of 2 things. You need to actually support the changing of font sizes, and then the other thing is that your UI needs to support that the fact that like when font size scales up or when the text is bigger, it takes more space, and then like the UI elements need to like flow based on that so that they are still usable. And I have a couple of examples from these all are from native apps that I'm using, for all of these, I turned my like phone's font size to the biggest one, and my phone's like display size also to the biggest one. So like there's not that much space available. If you want to do some testing, go to your phone's accessibility settings and then like change the font size to the biggest, and you're going to find some things like the following things that I'm going to show. So the first one is a like day selector. This is from Polar's app as well, and like you can choose the day that you wanna like which data you want to look at. And here, because each of these like day items which have like the name of the day, so like month, you, wed, and so forth, and then the number of the day, they have like fixed width, and when the font size scales up, these things don't fit into that, and they actually have fixed height as well, I think. So like the numbers and texts are overlapping here. Then here's an example from Helen's. So Helen's, I think it's Oma Helen app. And so here, when the font size scales up, the date, because it's like one string, it doesn't flow into 2, like it doesn't fit into the width that's given to it. But then like these 2 items, like the end date with the date and billing method, which is e-invoice, 12 bills yearly, they still are in a row, so they don't feel like flow into a column there when there is not enough space for them to be sort of together in a row. So, well, yeah, this is a good example of the things that happen with bigger font sizes. And then there's the one more thing. I still had the biggest font size set there, and HSL's app didn't, like the text buy a ticket and your tickets, they did not scale. And I just want to say that like when a user changes their font size to bigger one, they usually have a reason for it. It's usually related to vision, which means that if the website or app doesn't support scaling of that like text or font size, it might be that they don't see what's in there, like they can't get the information there. And it might mean that they can't make, for example, a purchase, which means like from a company's perspective that a company doesn't get money. So if we just want to talk about this, like not from user perspective, but from a company perspective. But yeah, these were some common things that I see with bigger font sizes. So yeah, I feel like I had some like something I was supposed to say here, but I'm just gonna go to the next one, and this is the last point. And I want to talk about web views. And web views are sort of a hybrid thing for like mobile web and native mobile. So if you're building a native mobile app and you want to include a, well, view from your website into the like native app, you can use web views for that. But as a mobile developer, I recommend just like building, if possible, building the view from the native components, because web views usually create a lot of headaches, a lot of bugs, not just accessibility bugs, but like in general bugs. So they are like, I would say, they are not the first. They should not be the first like decision for especially like bigger apps. Of course, like if you are prototyping, but like if you're actually building something for your customers, then I do not recommend. But they also cause some like accessibility problems and issues, and I have one example here. So this is from Postis, so Finnish Post's app, Oma Posti. And it's a view where I could check all my sent parcels, which there are none there. And I was testing it with a Switch device. And there is a, like, on the top left corner, there is an arrow which has a like blue rectangle around it. And that blue rectangle is actually a focus indicator for the Switch device or Switch access that I was using, so like I could see where it goes. When I pressed this back button, I expected that it would go to the previous previous view that I was like checking, or well, whatever back button does. So that was my expectation. Well, this happened. It opened a browser. And with an XML view, and I know it's really like small text, I'm gonna tell you what's in there. It just tells that access denied. So like instead of getting back to the previous like view, I just got an XML document with access denied. And that was something I did not expect. I also tested this, like the back button with talk back with keyboard navigation and some others, and this did not happen. So it was just with the Switch access. And when I was testing with TalkBack told me about the web views that are in this app. So that's why I'm like assuming that this is part of the web view behavior. I'm not like 100% sure. So if you're a developer from Posti and you know that this is not about web views, I believe you. But I've seen this kind of behavior before with web views when I've been testing different apps that have used web views. So yeah. All right. Now we are coming to the end of the talk, and I kind of like I've been talking about different things related to mobile apps and like how they like the accessibility on mobile, so both mobile web and native mobile differs from like desktop. And I think like I just want to leave you with one thought. When you are like, if you're working with accessibility, if you're testing things on like, well, related to accessibility, I just want to say that test, don't assume. And with this, I mean that like test with mobile apps, like with actual mobile devices, and don't assume that everything works because it works on like, for example, desktop, because, well, there are different considerations there. So yeah, I feel like I had something else here, but I have not written it down, so I'm just gonna continue to my next slide and say thank you for listening. My name is Eeva-Jonna Panula, and if you want to find me, my like social media or my blog, they're all on my website, which is eevis.codes, so eevis.codes, which is also my Blue Sky handle and Instagram handle, and probably some other handle too, not everywhere, but it's like what I go by. So yeah, thank you for listening, and I think...
Q&A. Round of applause. Thank you.